The Boondokl Bedtime Stories by Dr. Robert Lefevre. Number 7. The Poodle family, the Venerable Charles Poodle, Dr. Nicola Poodle, Henry Poodle and Beatrice Poodle, soon got into the routine of term time. "Come along, children," said Dr. Nicola Poodle for the 4th time. "You don't want to be late for school?" "I don't mind at all," said Henry cheekily. "Henry?" "Sorry, Mummy." "I should hope so. And Beatrice, don't forget your lunch." "Oh, Beatrice?" "Sorry, Mummy." It wasn't exactly like this every day, but it was more or less. "And do please tidy up your rooms before you leave," said Dr. Poodle, wondering if all the other mothers were saying exactly the same thing at the same time to their children. "There's not much point," said Beatrice with a sigh. "The Boondokl will play with our toys and games while we're out," thinking to herself that some mothers never understand. "Come along, Bee. Let's not have any more of this Boondokl nonsense. You may think that the bishop is your best friend, ever since he came to tea and said he thought it was normal to have untidy rooms. That's all right for bishops, but it's not all right for mothers." "Oh, Beatrice?" "Sorry, Mummy." "And have you got all your school books?" asked the Venerable Charles Poodle, knowing perfectly well that his son Henry Poodle was bound to have left one out somewhere. "Oh, Henry?" "Sorry, Daddy." "Count them up. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I thought so." It was indeed always the same, or more or less. A morning wouldn't feel like a real morning if it didn't start like this. Soon they were all ready. Henry and Beatrice got into the back of their mother's car, and the Venerable Charles Poodle stood in the front porch, waiting to wave them goodbye before he went into his study to make a list of all the people he had to see that day and the things that he had to do. Then the car door opened again, and Beatrice came back into the house to collect her lunch packet as usual. Mornings really wouldn't be mornings if things didn't happen the same way every day. As soon as the Venerable Charles Poodle had gone into his study and closed the door, there was a rustling in each of the children's bedrooms. The sound of the door closing was the signal that it was time for the Boondokl to start their day. Sam is always up first. Of course he is. He's the eldest Boondokl, and he feels he has to set an example to the young ones. Phoebe, Chloe and Jemima didn't mind, but Robin wasn't at all sure that he wanted or needed good examples every day of his life. In fact, he was quite keen to have bad examples, but there wasn't anyone in the Poodle household to give it to him. The other 4 Boondokl were all very well behaved. So Robin decided to send a bee-mail to his cousin Charlie, who lived next door, because Charlie could be guaranteed to think of something naughty, and to have his special grin when he did so. You always know from Charlie's grin that he's thinking something really wicked. Well, not really wicked, but certainly naughty. "Come to us today?" Charlie texted back to Robin, who replied with a happy. The problem for Robin was going to be trying to persuade the other Boondokl to go with him. They all like their cousins, Ali, Charlie and Alice. But it's quite an adventure getting from one house to the other, because they never know what they might meet, such as cats and dogs, and sometimes a rabbit or a hedgehog. Robin thought this was all part of the fun. Jemima and Phoebe thought it was dangerous, and Chloe thought it was very dangerous. They'd always been taught to stay away from dangerous places, dangerous rocks, and dangerous other things. But they knew that Sam would protect them. He always does. He's a very responsible Boondokl. God save us, thought Robin to himself. But he had a feeling that he ought not to. He'd heard the Venerable Charles Poodle say that once, but he'd noticed that Dr. Nicola Poodle frowned at him. It seemed a normal thing for the Venerable Charles Poodle to say, particularly for a clergyman. But Dr. Nicola Poodle looked displeased, as Dr. Poodle can sometimes. So maybe it wasn't the best thing to say after all. It's all very confusing with grown-ups. They don't always mean what they say or say what they mean. So Robin thought it best not to say his thoughts out loud, but to keep them to himself. It's safer that way sometimes. Meanwhile, Jemima had used Robin's unfasten program to open the door, and then she skated through to Bee's room, carefully avoiding a freshly spilled pile of picker sticks, in order to wake up Phoebe and Chloe in the usual way by singing the special Boondokl song. Boondokl here, Boondokl there, Boondokl, Boondokl everywhere. Time to wake up, time to get up, time to go boondokle here. To be continued.